Welcome to the show. My guest today is Stevie Rachelle. Stevie is involved in many projects. First and foremost, he is the singer and frontman for the band Tuff, and their debut record, What Comes Around Goes Around, is now being re-released. And he also sings for the bands Shameless and Tales from the Porn. And besides singing, he also has run the rock music website Metal Sludge since 1998. And I'm a big fan of all this stuff, especially Metal Sludge. And Metal Sludge has even done some stories for us before, so it's very cool to have Stevie on the show. He's been an insider in the scene and has some great stories to tell. He's going to talk about the Tuff early days, making the first record, his Cheeseheads with Attitude side project thing that he has, why he started Metal Sludge and the person that kind of prompted that, his feud with Mitch Lafon, and much, much more. So check it out. Welcome, Stevie Rachelle, to the Chuck Shoot Podcast. Finally, after like 2 years of asking, you finally gave in and decided to do it.
Have you been asking that long?
I don't know. It's been a while, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really have anything to
promote
talk about, but now I got something to talk about. So.
Yeah. So tell me what's going on right now before we dig into the rest of the old stuff.
Well, this is big news for us, or at least for me and the guys. And I did a deal with Rhino Entertainment and Warner Music Group where I signed a licensing deal to reissue our Atlantic Records debut. And tomorrow is essentially the 30th anniversary since What Comes Around Goes Around came out. It's long been discontinued and out of print. Very hard to find, or if you can, like, people are buying CDs on eBay for $40, $50, $60. Vinyl is even harder. It was only released on vinyl in Europe. So if you're lucky to find one, it's $100, $150, $175. And long story short, I've been doing some digging and searching and poking and prodding for a couple years now. And I finally got in touch with the people I needed to. And I signed a licensing deal. So RLS Records, my indie label, is reissuing What Comes Around Goes Around. And it's already been remastered. Graphics are being extended, so to speak. So the booklet and the CD, full deluxe booklet, 16 pages, lyrics, images from the merry-go-round shoot that everybody's so familiar with.
Nice. Yeah.
Any glare there. This is the vinyl. Obviously, this is the CD.
Yeah, because it's like I was telling you, like in Seattle, I don't think I could find that CD. Like I always read about you guys in Metal Edge, but I could never find your music. I was always like, oh, where? Like I feel like not even the used CD stores would have it. But I always would read about it. And I remember like the Fist First or Religious Fix. I was like, oh, that looks kind of cool. Like I want to hear that, but I don't know how to listen to it.
That was later.
That was later. Yeah. But even the first CD, I don't think
I
I could find that one. So that's cool. That's finally coming back now. And so is that, what about with Spotify and streaming and stuff? Are you still getting a cut of that though, right?
Well, digital is a whole different animal. Right now, if you go onto Spotify and you search for What Comes Around Goes Around digitally, it's available through Rhino Warner. Oddly, when this was all being done and we were actually, I was communicating with the Warner libraries and they forwarded us audio files. And then we remastered it, which it sounds great. I don't know. Did I send you the link yet or not? I
no.
should have sent you. I'll send you a link so you can download it and listen to it. It sounds great, but something that my mastering guy pointed out to me, Rhino Warner WIA, which has actually issued the digital, and it's been out for about a decade now, they spelled the name wrong.
Really?
The name of the record is What Comes Around Goes Around. They have it as What Goes Around Comes Around. Now, the old saying that a lot of people use is What Goes Around Comes Around. We switched it.
Okay.
So if you search it right now, it's misspelled.
That's hilarious. Wow.
Yeah.
So
and I never noticed it. Neither did anyone else in all the years it's been available.
That's funny.
And the only way to get a CD is people that are basically selling a used copy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a lot of copies that I've even bought at some points online, repackaged and resold to fans that wanted them and wanted to get, the singer to sign it, and then I'd put it with a T-shirt and some other What Comes Around Goes Around related items. But the thing that's crazy is when this record came out, it was in 91, and 6 months, 4, 5, 6 months later, we're on MTV in the fall, and we're on rotation. Guns N' Roses #1, Metallica #2, Tuff #3, and then the rest was Bon Jovi and Slaughter and Skid Row and Poison and Warrant and all those bands. But in the last week of August, early September, I believe it was, Nirvana was released. Now, at this point, as everybody knows what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But Pearl Jam had already been out for a while. Alice in Chains had been out for, God, even longer. Because I want to say Alice in Chains record came out in early 90.
Yeah.
And they were touring with Van Halen. So there was already some Seattle stuff that was happening. But the Nirvana record was the game changer because it got released. It sold a lot of records. The video got on MTV. And within months, Nirvana became this juggernaut, so to speak. And then everyone else just kind of followed suit with it. And of course, Soundgarden, I think, had already put out an EP and a record or whatever. But it was really Nirvana that pushed everything to the next level.
So was it like an overnight for you then? Was it where you guys were a hot band and then not so hot?
Pretty much. I mean, in looking back, it didn't seem like it was happening it was happening quickly, but it's not like, we were playing on Friday and everything was fine and on Monday it was over. But in some ways that did happen because we were on tour in a tour bus in the fall of 1991. Selling records were in every magazine.
Is this with Lita Ford?
Mattered.
Was this when you were on tour with Lita Ford?
Yeah. Well, we did a run by ourselves. We did like 8 weeks of dates by ourselves. Then we were home for 2 weeks. Then we did another 4, 5, 6 weeks with Lita Ford. And across throughout that year, we did a show with Dokken or Don Dokken, a show with Aldo Nova, a show with, Bullet Boys, just a lot of one-offs with guys. Or bands like us, Sweet FA, all different Dangerous Toys. But we never, secured ourselves a big major tour. We weren't on an arena run, so to speak. But, the thing is, we were on tour in a tour bus. And I remember our manager called us and just said, Atlantic is pulling the tour support. So we can't afford the bus anymore. You guys are going to have to go in a van. And we had a couple of days notice, like less than a week, a few days. And I remember we were in Boston, and the night we got done with the show, they said, hey, you guys got to take everything out of the bus because the guy's leaving. After the show tonight, the bus is going off somewhere else. And tomorrow morning, there's going to be a Ryder truck here for the equipment. The bus was going to go the next morning. So we had to have the Ryder truck the next morning to take all the equipment from under the bays that are, under the bus, put it in the truck, and then we got in a van. So like literally that happened where we got a phone call and just said, you can't afford the bus anymore. Now you're in a van. But again, we all saw it happening, but, in looking back, I don't think anybody realized how significant of a change that was. And I don't think anybody realized, and when I say anybody, I mean all of us, the Slaughters, the Warrants, the Skid Rows, everybody was at some point also saying to themselves, well, we're not as glam as them anymore. We're not wearing makeup anymore. We don't have our hair sprayed up anymore. Everybody at some point looked pretty hokey pokey,
Yeah, no, I saw some pictures like last night because you guys actually started before you started touring and stuff. You actually started you joined the band 87, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and so like you guys were on the Sunset Strip for like a few years before you got signed and all that. So, and it's funny because I was I always thought, yeah, you did look like Bret Michaels, but you said like the timing, you went down to LA around 87, like before Poison had broke. So when people saw Poison on TV, people from your hometown thought it was you.
Correct. Yeah. What happened is I'm living in Wisconsin, filtering back, let's say 84. So it's my senior year in high school, 1984. I'm a senior in high school. I'm 17, fall of 83, fully into skateboarding, new wave music. I'm listening to like Billy Idol, Devo, the B-52s.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, about the skateboarding real quick. How did you skateboard in Wisconsin? Because isn't there snow on the ground 6 months of the year?
Yeah, there is. and myself and my friends who I skated with, there was a couple of kids on our block. Me, Kurt Hahnemann, and Billy Zabel. We lived like on the same block, and all of our parents loved us because when we were 12 and 13 and 14 years old, how many kids' parents come up and knock on their bedroom door at 7 a.m. and say, "Steven, go shovel the driveway." No, damn it, I don't want to shovel the driveway. It's cold out. We shoveled our driveways religiously and swept them and chipped off the ice so we had places to skate. And we built quarter pipe ramps in the driveway so we skate up the ramp and back. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not conducive to the sport.
But you made it work.
Skateboarder. But I was obsessed with it since I was really little, since the 70s, like mid 70s. I started riding on a skateboard on my block on like a little plastic Huffy, 1976, 7, 10, 11 years old. Because by 1978, I had already started to become obsessed with it to the point where I would go to the sports shops or the stores where they would have a skateboard magazine. Just like there was Metal Edge and Hip Shaker, there was magazines for skateboarding as well. So that was my first love, that I was really into skateboarding and buying the magazines and just getting better and better and better and progressing and learning about skating through magazines and seeing, wow, they're doing all this in California. And so my fantasy as a kid was to go to California to skateboard.
That's fun. That's like the same story as Tony Harnell from TNT. He was a big skateboarding kid too.
He was a skater as well. Yeah. Correct. Him and I have actually talked about our history of skating in the past.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, we didn't know each other back then, but we kind of know, we shared our little bit of history.
Right.
So as a pre-teen, I was obsessed with skateboarding. Then into my teens, 13, 14, which is 79, 1980. I'm completely obsessed with skateboarding. Now at this point, the level we upped it to where my buddy built a half pipe in his backyard, one of those big wooden U-shaped ramps so you could skate from one side to the next. And so we were completely into that. And a lot of the music that I was surrounded by was basically brought to my attention through skateboarding. So when you went to somebody's house and they'd be skating in the ramp, somebody would have a boombox or a CD, or a cassette player, and they'd be playing Black Flag or JFA or Devo or Sex Pistols or The Clash, whatever. So I would hear all that and go, oh, that's cool. I want to buy that, just by association, monkey see, monkey do. So I started buying and listening to all new wave and punk. And then it was my senior year in high school, 83. All my friends were really, not all my friends, but a group of friends were really getting into Def Leppard, Loverboy, Rush, and Ozzy was coming in concert. So now it's just past New Year's Eve. It's January of 84. And everybody was talking about Ozzy's coming in concert, which I didn't really know anything about him. And the only thing I really knew is that he ate bats.
Right.
Because of the big press thing that happened when he bit the head off the bat.
Sure.
So when my friends were going to go to that, I was like, okay, I'm interested. So we bought a ticket. It was like $11, but if you paid $12, if you paid an extra $1, you could ride on the bus to the arena.
Oh, okay.
Which the arena where this was happening was in Madison. So that's like not 100 miles, but pretty close, like 60, 70, 80 miles from my house. And then right before that concert, Kiss came to Green Bay, which was the Lick It Up tour with Vandenberg, and Heaven was the opener. Vandenberg was from Sweden or Finland, I'm pretty sure. I don't know where Heaven was from. I want to say they were maybe from like somewhere in Europe as well. I could be wrong though. So anyways, my first real rock concert was the Kiss Lick It Up tour. And then 2 weeks later was the Ozzy show. So I went to the Ozzy show and Motley Crue was the opener.
Yeah.
The Shout at the Devil tour. And so watching that completely changed my life, because seeing that, I went home and I was obsessed. I want to be a singer. I'm going to join a band. I want to get a record deal. I want to be on stage like that. I want to go on tour. And that was the change. And that was March March 8th of 84, and I turned 18 on March 2nd. So turned 18, a couple days later, saw Motley Crue, and they ruined my life.
And then you moved to LA to not to join Tuff, but just to audition, right? You hadn't actually gotten the job yet.
Correct. So what happened after I saw Motley Crue, I became obsessed with them, started buying every magazine, had never heard of any of these bands previously, knew nothing about them, nothing. I barely knew about Van Halen. Like I'd heard the name Van Halen, but I didn't know anything about them really. Except for the guitarist had like the stripes on his guitar or something, you know, just like, I mean, because that was a big deal. Like it was a big deal when Ozzy ate a bat or something, you know? So I only heard of what was like really mainstream in the way of, I probably heard like You Really Got Me or something on the radio, but never really paid attention because I was more obsessed with skateboarding and new wave. So now when I decide I want to be a singer, a group of friends from school, there's a guy that's a drummer, a different guy's a guitarist, you know, the guy that I used to see in the Iron Maiden shirt who was always in the smoking area, who I never really cared to talk to because I was a jock. I was into all sports. Now I'm like, dude, you're a drummer? Really? You guys want to jam? You know? So then it was like this guy with the drum set and this guy had a bass and this guy was a guitarist and all these guys started getting together and jamming. And I'd hear about it and they would say, hey, there's going to be a jam session at so-and-so's house in the basement on Saturday. And so we'd go. And every time I went, it was like a couple of guys that wanted to play drums, and there'd be 2 or 3 guys with guitars, and somebody would come in with a flying V, or, you know, somebody had a Marshall cabinet, and everybody was just doing their part, but there was really no singer. And so everybody would just start jamming anything from like Limelight by Rush and Crazy Train by Ozzy and all just different metal songs. And at some point, nobody was singing. So I was kind of like by default going, well, like, hey, I kind of know part of that. Like they were playing White Wedding by Billy Idol. And I was like, oh, I know that, you know, it's a nice day for a white wedding, you know, into a microphone, you know, that was plugged into like some speaker in the corner of the garage. And a couple of the girls there all squealed. And everybody looked at me and, Steve, you're the guy. You're the singer, Steve. And I was like, yeah, that's right. I'm the singer, you know, like no one else is the singer. So I'm the singer.
There you go.
And that's kind of what I wanted anyways, even though I had never sang before. And so then as that happened, you know, a band kind of started coming together and, you know, this guy's going to play and this guy's not, and this guy's quitting and this guy's not cool enough looking. And he's got an afro, so he won't work. And, you know, of course, at that point, we're all young and somebody shows up with a leather jacket with some patches on it. And you're like, dude, that's cool. Where did you get that? You know, like you're impressed with somebody that has the new flying V that they bought at the music store or something. And so then I just started going through the motions, you know, and we started playing cover songs and jamming originals. And then we're like, found a teen center that we could play at. Went down, talked to the guy. And I remember I went to this place called the AV Rec Center in Oshkosh, where I'm from. It's a little arcade where teenage kids could go during the day and play games and screw around. And there was a Black Flag concert there just like a couple of weeks earlier. And they were talking about how many people were there. And Henry Rollins lost his shoes and they had him on the bar and they were all proud. And I was like, hey, I want to play here with my band. So the guy made us a deal and said, you can sell tickets and keep $3 for each one of them. So we printed up these little blue tickets, and this was the band Exciter.
Yeah.
And we basically started selling tickets for like, you know, $3 to people. And then that day came and we loaded in all our amps and some backdrop stuff and some flash pots and got our stage clothes together and went down there and screamed and yelled for a few hours, you know, and that became addictive. And so, you know, we were playing teen centers because most of us were pretty much underage. And at that time in Wisconsin, they had Wisconsin was one of the last states to have the drinking age raised to 21. So in 1984 and 85, if you were 18, you could go drink. 86 is when they passed the law And if you look on the books, the law was that on June 30th, it changed federally across the entire United States. You had to be 21 years of age before June 30th of 1986 to go drink. Or you had to be 18 before June 30th in Wisconsin to drink. But then they changed it so you had to be of age across the whole United States. You had to be 21 starting on that date. So those kids that we grew up with, that if you turned 18 on, say, June 26th or 28th, you could go to the bars going forward. But if you didn't turn 18 until after June 30th, on July 1st or 9th or 13th, you then had to wait 3 more years.
Oh, God, what a nightmare.
21. Yeah. And so for Wisconsin, which is a big drinking state and college towns, and there was a lot of kids that were born, earlier than others who could go to the bars legally with their ID, even though they were 18 or 19 years old when they changed it to 21. And so for that 2-year, 3-year period until it got, they call it grandfathered in by, a few years later, then it's 21 across the board.
Right.
So, and our band was like, our drummer, Jim, one of the drummers we used was like 16. Tony, a different drummer, was 15 or 16. I was 18 or 19. Everybody was young, Then we started playing bars and cover songs. But within a couple of years, I felt like I was outgrowing it.
Yeah.
And wanted to move. Because everybody that was cool that I read about that was coming out of, that was in the magazines was coming out of Hollywood.
Sure.
And not just Motley, Crue, and Rat, but, Black and Blue and Keel and Armored Saint. And then, Poison came out in 86. And they were very much a Motley, Crue, Rat, Van Halen-ish band, which obviously made a big impact.
Yeah. So then you get down there, and so talk about playing. It seems like it's such a cool scene on the Sunset Strip in the 80s. Like you're playing with Angora, which is John Corabi's band at the time, and Warrant, and there was some band with Johnny Martin, who was like future LA Guns, like all these people. Jeremy Popoff was in Razzle, who he's later in Lit, and all these kinds of people. Like it's just such a incestuous like kind of family almost. Right.
Yeah, Johnny Martin was in a band called Mon Cherie, spelled MON-CHERI. And the second or third gig I played with Tuff was at the Troubadour, and it was 3 bands. Tuff was the first slot. I forget if maybe Mon Cherie was second, and then somebody else headlined. But so yeah, I've known Johnny since way back. I don't remember if I played. We might have played with Angora, but the thing that you probably read about, the first show that I ever went to, maybe that's Hollywood, was Angora.
Yeah.
Like I got here on a Thursday, June 27th or something, and the very next day, some friends of mine in the building took me to a show, which ended up being Angora.
And then the first show you opened, the first show that you played in there was opening for Warrant, and but they weren't that big you didn't know who they were.
Well, they were definitely big, but I didn't know who they were.
Yeah,
because I was living in Wisconsin.
Sure.
And so I moved to town.
They weren't national yet.
I tracked down Tuff, get an audition, and at that point, as we look back 30 some years ago, there was no internet.
Mm-hmm.
So when we found out about stuff, news per se, about what's happening in the industry, when here's a good example. When Van Halen broke up, that news didn't get out for a long time, because it was like, at that point, magazines and print media is usually there's a 60 to 90 day lead.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times that's why when you'd buy a magazine back in the day, you'd see you might see the holiday issue come out in October for Christmas issue. But really all the stuff that they had printed and was released in October was actually interviewed and scripted and edited and sent to the press in July or August, because stuff's got to be turned around and printed and then distributed, and there's always a delay. So today, if something happens, it's on TMZ in a couple hours,
mm-hmm.
or Metal Sludge.
Yeah, right.
So, so what was happening on the Strip? I just remember when I was in Wisconsin the last year or so, like 86 into early 87. The last year or so, I had already met a few people that had come out to Hollywood. I knew a couple girls that had been here, a couple of guys in bands that knew a friend who was like, oh, my friend lived in LA for a month or two. And I remember hearing about Guns N' Roses, like in like late 86, and everyone saying there's this really hot band. And, so I would hear little bits and pieces, but I didn't know about everybody. I didn't know about everything. And even back then, to call from LA to Wisconsin is a long distance phone call. So to make a phone call and talk on the phone with a relative is money, which at that age most people don't have. So a lot of times, the information was like everything that was happening there on Sunset Strip. It wasn't privy information to the rest of the world, unless you came into LA and got some Rock City News zines or band magazines and took them home with you and then shared them with your friends.
Yeah, so you're just clubbing and playing, chugging along, and then you finally get signed. It was the summer of 90, right?
Correct.
And then, so the debut, which again, this is now out, this is cool, but was this one produced by Howard Benson?
Correct.
Yeah, so talk about how he was like taught you how to be, I thought it was interesting that when he was taught you how to be descriptive with lyrics, like instead of saying fast car, he would say candy apple red Camaro, because now you can picture it. And it's fast because it's a red Camaro. So he kind of helped you how to tell you how to write lyrics.
Yeah, it was interesting, to record a demo, to record a professional demo, which we did a couple times with me. The first time we did a demo was the spring of 88 with Jesse Harms. Jesse Harms was the keyboard player in Sammy Hagar's band.
Oh. Who
also went on to play with David Lee Roth. So Jesse produced our first demo, which we did at Sound City, the famous studios that Nirvana did their record at, and Fleetwood Mac and Rat, and obviously Dave Grohl did that documentary.
Yeah, that's cool.
So we did our first real demo with me there in the spring of March of 88. And matter of fact,
you have it? You have a copy of it? You went to go get it.
Hang on a second.
Hopefully you're coming back, because it's not good to have dead air on the podcast. Well, I like this. You got some cool posters on the back with the Tuff CD, and there's some sort of article on Billboard.
I had the reel somewhere.
That would be cool.
Let me put my glasses on for a second.
Okay. Find the actual reel.
Trying to leave everybody hanging.
Is that stuff like you could sell? Wonder you could sell that for on eBay. The actual reel there's got to be some collector out there that would pay a fortune for that. Right?
I am.
He's looking.
Horrified. It's not where I thought it was.
Well, that happens. But anyways,
okay.
Yeah.
So either way, yeah. We did the demo that had Summertime Goodbye, Round 'Em Up, Want Trouble, You Got It. That was early 88. We did another demo with Warren Croyle in the early part of 89. And we did that at Sunset Sound and mixed it at Amigo. And that was Good Guys Were Black and Center Street. And I do have, actually right here, this is what became of those sessions. This is Decadation. Is that in?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, that's cool.
Okay. Decadation. This is a vinyl, a limited edition vinyl I put out some years ago, and it's not side A and side B or side 1 and 2, but it's side 1988.
Oh, okay.
1989.
Nice.
And what it has on here is the side 1988 is the Sound City recordings, and side 1989 is the Sound City recording, or the Sunset Sound recordings.
Okay.
And the photos, these are from 1989 with Niels Lozauer, the very famous photographer.
Oh, nice. Yeah, those look really professional.
Yeah, this was a great lease. I had that. God, where did I put that reel? I have a shelf over here that's full. But anyways, so we did a couple of pro demos that came out really good. But I mean, you learn a lot when you go in the studio with somebody that's older, more experienced. there's things that take place, you know, and you can see that when you work with young bands and they're going to record for the first time, or even playing live and writing songs. And then by the time we got in with Howard, which was the fall of 90, we're now in pre-production and he's coming to rehearsal. And I remember one of the first things he did, he came in and he said, I want you guys to play me your 10 best songs. And we're going to make a list. And we had like a chalkboard in the studio. And he's like, what is this one called? And we're like, Good Guys Wear Black, you know, and he'd write the title down. 1, play it for me. Okay, play me another one. Number 2, number 3. And we went through the first 10. And then he said, okay, now I want you to play me your next best 10 songs. And we're like, okay. So we play him 10 more songs. Now it's list number 2, 1 through 10. And he's just like, okay, now what I want you to do is play me your best ideas, like your working ideas, not a complete song, but you have some cool riffs or a part, play me those. So we went in there and at some point we played him what we thought were our 10 best songs, and then a second list of another 10 songs, and then another 6 or 8 or 10 ideas. So at some point there was 30 pieces,
wow,
you know, songs, ideas, whatever. And at some point he started to whittle it down and saying, I like this. I like this. We're not doing that. Let's try this. And on this list, I like this and this. No way on that. No way on this. These ideas, I like this one and this one. Let's work on those. So Ruckapit Bridge, for instance, that was just an idea. And it was a riff that George had been playing around with that kind of sounds like It's Not Love by Dokken, by George Lynch. So we just called it the Dokken idea. That's what it was on the board.
Okay.
And that's, so, you know, you had the first 10, the second 10, and then the list of ideas. And the Dokken idea became Ruckapit Bridge, which not only made the record, but it's the you know, the opening track.
Opening track, yeah.
And I remember as we started working on the songs, now we've got the songs down. Like Howard's like, we're going to do these 10 songs. And then he said the first day, we're about a week into it, he says, okay, I want you to play this song for me. And then he stood up and he went behind Michael's drum kit and he just sat there and he watched Michael playing. Like he just watched Michael for like 3 minutes, just play the song. And then he basically said, okay, we're going to strip this down to this. Your kick pattern, I want you to do boom, 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 boom. That's your kick pattern. Make it steady, make it steady. And so he basically went from like building a cake. There's that old saying, you got to make the cake solid before you can put frosting on it. If the cake falls apart, the frosting and all the decorations aren't going to look good. The cake's got to be solid first. Then you can put on the frosting. Once the frosting's nicely coated, now you can put the sprinkles and then put the candles and the decorations. And that's what you do with a song. You take the drum pattern, the kick and the snare is got to be steady. Now we have the drums built. Now let's put some bass to it. Let's thicken up the rhythm layer with the drum. Now let's put the rhythm guitar with the bass and with the drum. And he broke everything down in a really simplistic way, you know, where he was just like, don't play leads, don't sing vocals, don't play fills, play the solid bass drum, kick, snare, hat. Todd, play the rhythm. George, you play the rhythm. Like, let's suss it out so the song is solid. Now let's put this in here. Let's add this here and add that. And so this was happening for weeks and weeks and weeks. 6 weeks, well, not four, probably 3 or 4 weeks we did pre-production. But by the time we went to record, they did bass and drums first and then rhythms. And so a couple of weeks into it, now we're going to start with lyrics and me singing. So I would bring Howard a spiral of like, hey, here's the lyrics I have for this song. And I remember one day I brought him the song and he took a Sharpie and he just started crossing like everything out. Like if there was 40 lines, he crossed out 25 of them. and he circled like 5 or 6 and said, I like this, I don't like this, this makes no sense, you've said this.
So he is not like a hands-off producer. He is a hands-on producer.
Oh, very.
Okay.
But, but at the same time, he goes, go rewrite these, and the thing that stands out is we were working on All New Generation.
Mm-hmm.
I came up with the idea to do the All New Generation, and it was kind of a ripoff of Billy Joel's, what's it called? We Didn't Start the Fire, where he sings about like everything from Marilyn Monroe to ex-presidents and all kinds of different celebrity names and famous people. So I was originally singing the All New Generation and using there was all kinds of stuff in there like that.
Yeah.
And Howard was one who said, no. Let's define this. Let's make it about music. Let's make it about the generations of music. Don't worry about Marilyn Monroe or President Kennedy or, none of that matters, or Ronald McDonald or Fonzie or whoever I had in there. And it was all over the place. He goes, no, you need to define this. Let's make it about music. Let's write these lyrics about the generations of music. Break it down that way. So then I went back to the drawing board and I said, okay, let me break it down into generations, like the 50s and the 60s, then the 70s, and then the 80s. And so the 50s and the 60s ended up being Elvis Presley, Richie, Gerri, Little Richard, Buddy Barry. The Beatles Had a Hard Day's Night. And then the next was about the 70s. The Who, The Doors, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, and old Van Halen. Aerosmith Told You Walk This Way. And then the 80s was Cooper Kiss, the Oz and Motley, Poison, Axl, John Bon Jovi, Skid Row Is the Youth Gone Wild. Right. But I mean, it didn't come off my tongue that quickly and that easily in the beginning. I'm like writing all kinds of bands down and who made sense and who were the big names in the 50s and the 60s. And so little by little piecing it together. But Howard made us all better. He made me better. He taught me a lot of little things about writing and how to make lyrics work and how to make them tell a story, and learned a lot.
Yeah.
Learned a lot from him.
No, that's cool. And so that album comes out, and I think you said it sold like 100,000 copies, which isn't bad for the time. Cause like you said, this is right around now the cusp, Nirvana hits and things kind of start to slow down for you. So, this is like Todd quits the band shortly thereafter. Grunge happens. Adam Hamilton, I had him on. He said that, then this is kind of when he enters LA and he's living with CeCe Deville at that house. He said he saw you up there. That was kind of like, did you go up to CeCe Deville's house a lot? That was like the party house back in the day.
Yeah, and it's not like I was going there to party, because what happened is my roommate at the time, one of my roommates was a guy named Toy Stacy. Okay. Toy Stacy was the technically the third bassist in the Zeros. The Zeros were the purple-haired guys. You know who the Zeros are? I'm blown away. You don't know who the Zeros are.
Was this this was like a hair metal band?
You don't know who the Zeros are?
No.
Okay, well, you're going to learn something today, Chuck.
No, I know. See,
the Zeros were like the purple-haired Ramones of Hollywood.
Were they national though?
Yeah, at some point they signed a deal with Restless and had a record come out called 4321 The Zeros.
Okay, I'll definitely have to check that out.
Purple-haired singer was Sammy Sirius, bass player was Danny Dangerous, guitarist was Joe Normal, and the drummer was Mr. Insane. A lot of your people listening right now, they know who the Zeros are.
Okay.
If you Google them, you'll see a lot of stuff.
No, so that's the thing, is like I'm learning about a lot of this stuff like retroactively, because I didn't get into it until like 92.
Yeah. And
so
you're 10 or 15 years younger than the generation in general. So my roommate was Todd Toy Stacy, who was he was the bass player that replaced Danny Dangerous. And he was friends with a guy named I'm having a brain fart here. Robbie Kesey, Robbie Roulette. Robbie Roulette was CeCe DeVille's personal assistant / security guard. And I had known CeCe from, the scene and being in Hollywood and all that. And so this was about the time that he was still in Poison, but he was about to be, I was hanging around there when he got ousted. So, Adam got invited to go to play with CeCe And then ended up in Hollywood. And then at some point ended up in another band called Joey C. Jones and the Glory Hounds.
Right.
And toured with them. And they played some shows with us because I had known Joey since the Sweet Savage days, and going full a few years forward, and we'll go back again. In mid-late 1995, we needed a drummer for a tour, and I ended up getting Adam Hamilton involved, and he actually went and did a couple of months of dates with us.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool.
Adam's great.
Yeah, so Tuff kind of you soldier on though, and you do that. Like I said, the Fist First, or AKA Religious Fix. I remember seeing like the pictures in Metal Edge and going, "This looks so cool." I finally was able to listen to it, and then also I remember reading about this in Metal Edge that I thought was so cool is what you reinvented yourself with the Cheeseheads with Attitude thing. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. I was like so happy because I always like was rooting for the genre. And so anybody that could do anything and reinvent themselves, and you did, you reinvented yourself. And like, I heard you talking about, you made a lot of money off that, which is really cool. Right. And it was just like spoof songs is what it was, right? You did like the song like Beck's Loser, and you did like a spoof of that, but about, Green Bay Packer stuff.
Right. Well, and it's not like I was trying to reinvent myself. I did this as a side project.
Yeah.
Like I've been doing Tuff for the better part of a decade. I mean, my run as a hair band singer was, from 84, 85 until 95. And when Tuff ended at the end of 95, I just had this idea. I was a big Packer fan, and I wanted to do something similar to what the Chicago Bears fans had done, or the team had done when they won the Super Bowl in 1985. They did a thing called the Super Bowl Shuffle.
Yeah, of course.
It became kind of a big deal. They won the Super Bowl, and at that point they had Walter Payton, world famous running back. They had the quarterback, Jim McMahon, with the sunglasses and the headbands, and then they had the big fat defensive guy named William the Refrigerator Perry. So they had like a little bit of a gimmicky vibe going on with them. And they created this thing called the Super Bowl Shuffle, which was kind of a rap song based on the fact that they were the champions. So I had this idea to do some kind of a Green Bay Packers project, and had a couple of buddies who are both from Wisconsin as well. And we, called ourselves Cheeseheads with Attitude. And then everything we did with it, I wanted to do it to spoof on everything. So the band was called CWA, which is a play on NWA.
Sure, yeah.
And then the album we put out was called Straight Outta Wisconsin, which is a play on Straight Outta Compton.
Sure.
And we were a three-piece like the Beastie Boys. And everything everything was based on not just the Packers, but Wisconsin. That was the thing. We didn't just sing about the Packers. We sang about being from Wisconsin, and everything was to do with cheese and bratwursts and drinking beer, and then all the funny city names like Oconomowoc and Kenosha and Ozaukee and Nina Menasha and Kakana and Wauwatosa, and with the heavy accents. And then what we did is we took songs that were famous, like Weird Al had done, and then rewrote the lyric about Wisconsin. So, and the timing was just impeccable. I basically came up with the idea in the fall of 96, recorded it in 2 days for $900.
That's it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because didn't you make $200,000 in a month and a half?
More than that, actually. So
nice.
It was a $900 2-day recording session. Put the record out. Technically, it was an EP because it was 5 songs plus a spoken word intro. Like we took the Pledge of Allegiance and I rewrote it, and it's called the Wedge of Allegiance.
That's awesome.
And this was like when Brett Favre was at his peak. And then, that year they won the Super Bowl. They won it
perfect
in February of 97. So the record came out in November around Thanksgiving. And by February, I had printed 45,000 copies of the record. So I went from printing 1,000 and selling out to another 1,000 to 5,000 to 10,000 to a 20,000 piece order, all within about 8 weeks.
That's amazing. That's really cool.
Yeah. And the thing that really helped, though, aside from the fact that it was getting played on all the radio stations and we were appearing places and doing in stores and appearing on morning TV shows and morning radio shows, we had big distributors call me and contact me to buy. So like Handelman Company is a major distributor that buys for big box stores, Walmart, Fleet Farm, Costco, Target, Kmart. And they called me and at some point placed, their initial order was for 5,000 pieces out of the box.
Dang.
COD, one way. They pay me $35,000. I give them 5,000 CDs and they sell them.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, and then this is also, and then a couple years later, this is when you finally start Metal Sludge. I didn't know, after doing some research, I found out the reason that you started it. This is fascinating. I did not know this. It was actually about Gerri Miller. Rest in peace. Yeah. But she's the one that kind of like lit a fire under you, I guess, in a way. But she made a comment about how you would, needed to end. You were going to put out your solo record, and she made some comment about you just need to give it up. And so you said, "Fuck it, I'm going to make this like website that's going to like basically troll Metal Edge."
Yeah, no, you're right, and yeah, rest in peace to Gerri. She was great to us for many years, but it's
which is kind of surprising because I thought she loved you guys. So the fact that she would say something bad is like kind of surprising.
She did. But at some point, here's the thing. I didn't throw tomatoes at her door. I didn't mail her dog poop in the mail. I didn't go out to like, make her life a living hell. But it was just, the thing is this. I learned this as time went along. All the bands on the Sunset Strip, all of us were rivals. I mean, did we get along? Did we play together? Were we kind of friends? Yeah, but there's been more than a few times that some of these bands, we grabbed each other by the jacket and wanted to fucking punch each other in the face. I mean, Flyer Wars, we had some issues with Taz and, just being competitive. It happens. No different than Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue. Only that was much higher up, Vince wanting to fight Izzy and vice versa, and Dave Mustaine and Metallica going at each other. And, there's anger and jealousy and fighting. I came to realize years into this, the same thing happens on all levels. Producers aren't always that fond of each other. Or if you ask somebody behind closed doors, well, I really don't like this. And I don't think that. I can't believe he's getting this and I'm not. And it's the same thing with the magazines. Rip Magazine, Hit Parader Magazine, Metal Edge Magazine, all of them, all competitive, all kind of didn't necessarily like the other person that much. And I remember what happened is there was a, I don't know if it was NAMM or something else, but Rip had a booth. Lon Friend, you know who that is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Lon Friend, editor of Rip Magazine and Rockbeat, had a booth. Andy Setcher was the editor of Hit Parader. Gerri Miller was the editor of Metal Edge. And we're at NAMM, and we walk up, and Lon's got a booth. He's got a whole bunch of people there. Everyone's hanging around, blah, blah, blah. And he's got a dartboard, and it has a Metal Edge magazine. And he's like, "Come on, Stevie, throw some darts. Come on, you got to throw I'm like, "I'm not throwing any darts." He's like, "Come on, you got to do it. Everyone's doing it." And I picked up some darts, and I threw them at the dartboard. Well, we now made a list. There was a list of people who all threw darts. It might even have been a picture of Gerri, I think. I'm not even sure. I know it was something to do with Metal Edge, but Lon kept track of all this. And then they went and they gave it to Gerri. And they said, all these people threw a dart at your magazine. And she was fucking furious. She was so fucking mad.
Wow.
I just did it in jest, it was kind. Just
That's kind of fucked up to Lon to do that, though, to throw you under the bus like that.
Well, it's not like he was just throwing me under the bus. I mean, I think everybody got thrown under the bus. But, you're trying to appease one guy, but not piss off someone else. And at some point, I remember there was even there was a little bit of a rivalry, shall we say, between Rip and Metal Edge, or between Metal Edge and Hit Parader, and it just happened. So, but Gerri was nice to us. But I remember you mentioned Fist First. When Fist First came out, I bought advertisements in Metal Edge magazine. I did a thing with another band that I worked with called The Mistakes. We bought a full color, full page ad, not cheap, like a couple $1,000s. And I want to say we ran it a couple times. We ran that in Metal Edge magazine so I could promote, hey, order the Tuff record through this PO box, blah, 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 blah. Because Fist First was an independent record on RLS Records.
Right.
My label, not a distributed, CMC or Deadline or Caroline or whoever. It was my label. So I put that ad out. I also put it out in Hit Parader, right? Now, Hit Parader, as you may know or not, may not know, Hit Parader, Andy Setcher is one of the reasons we got signed, because we were signed to Atlantic Titanium. Titanium was the subsidiary that signed us. Titanium was 4 partners. The partners are Andy Setcher, the editor of Hit Parader, Mitch Hersowitz, who was part of Hit Parader, Paul O'Neill, who was the producer of Sabotage and the guy who concepted TSO, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and then a 4th partner named Sheldon, who was a silent partner. Those 4 guys are the reason we got our deal through Atlantic. So when I was trying to promote my new independent record, I went to Andy at Hit Parader and I said, hey, what can you do for me? I want to advertise this. They gave me a great deal. So I ran my ad in Hit Parader. The whole reason I'm bringing this up, Gerri Miller contacted me and asked me why I advertised in Hit Parader. She was mad at me.
Really?
She was mad.
So you're only supposed to advertise in Metal Edge?
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, oh, Gerri, I want to be in all the magazines. I want to be in your magazine. I want to be in RIP. I want to be in Rockbeat. I want to be in Hit Parader. I'm like, Andy, Gerri did a lot for Tuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know how much Andy did for Tuff? Andy was putting me in the magazine for years before he even signed us, because he told me he intended to sign us. And that's part of the reason he was pushing us. So it's like Gerri got mad at me for supporting the very man and the very magazine that helped give us a record deal. And, hey, again, I'm not trying to speak ill of her. She was very helpful to us and very nice. But at some point, she didn't always play fair. And so when she dissed me, and she dissed some other people, and she kind of turned her backs on us, when the grunge thing really set in, 93, 94, it was almost like she just went, Wow. So I was like, fuck you, and so, a couple years later, she said a few things that got back to me. And at some point, that was the catalyst for me to start Metal Sludge.
Yeah. And so how wonderful this was. I remember discovering that, because it was one of those things, like, if you were into that kind of music, you found the site. Because if you typed in, it wasn't even Google back then. It was like Yahoo or Ask Jeeves or Netscape or whatever. You type in like Warrant or Skid Row or whatever, like your site was the one that would come up. And I remember going, what is this site? Because it was so like, it had like a sense of humor, and it was like adult oriented, and it was funny. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And this is like the only place you can get new content about those kinds of bands.
Well, that's because nobody was covering it,
yeah.
Including, Metal Edge didn't cover it for many years, except for the occasional Rock Never Stops tour, which they would do some press release and say, hey, these 30 dates are happening with Poison, Warrant, Slaughter, and Quiet Riot, and here's the dates, and here's a couple of pictures of the guys backstage, and this is what we heard, and this is what's happening. But for the most part, Metal Edge also became Korn, Marilyn Manson, Power Man 5000.
Right.
Monster Magnet.
That's when I stopped kind of buying it. I think I just kind of lost
and so
touch.
Metal Sludge came, in September of '98 when the internet was new, and me and my partner at the time, Sean, were just like, we love this kind of music. Obviously, I was very attached to it, and we wanted to give the fans something to read about. And aside from just covering the stuff that everybody had heard about endlessly, everybody, all those big magazines continued to cover at some point Warrant, Whitesnake, Winger, Poison, Bon Jovi, Skid Row, Tesla, Cinderella. And we're like, hey, no disrespect, but fuck all those guys. We want to talk about Rhino Bucket, Sleazebees, Slick Toxic, King of the Hill, Kick Tracy, Nitro, all the stuff that was Killer Dwarfs, like we wanted to talk about the obscure stuff, Helix,
Dangerous Toys, Bang Tango, Danger. Yeah.
So we covered the bottom of the D list, and not just a little blurb, but we give a little bit more love to those guys, you know?
That was fun. And I remember like the penis chart. I remember seeing that. I still look at that and go, what the, like, how did you guys even get that information? Was it from people sending stuff in?
You know, it just kind of became, it just kind of organically evolved. You're 10, 15 years younger than me. I don't know exactly how old you are. Do you remember the column called Ann Landers?
Yeah, vaguely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're kind of young for that, but you know, and even when I was a kid, meaning like 10, I remember my mom talking about it, and like Ann Landers was like a columnist that would give advice. Like people would write to, I don't know, whatever the magazine was. It might even
was it in the newspaper?
Pardon?
I thought it was newspaper. No.
Could have been a newspaper.
Yeah.
It was a circulated blog that people would write to this, dear Ann Landers. You know, my husband is doing this, my husband's doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I should go through divorce and
advice.
And so she would give advice, you know. And so at some point, Metal Sludge, we had a mailbag, you know. People would just naturally write us crazy shit, but sometimes we'd go like, hey, if you need advice, ask us a stupid question, we'll answer it. And so at some point we did a few. And then we asked a few people to help out. And at some point we contacted, for instance, Ricky Rocket, who had been really supportive of the site. He was one of the first rock stars, next level rock stars, who really supported us. And he was game to interact and answer email. So I don't remember if it was him or if it was us who came up with it. We came up with the idea to call him Dr. Rocket. Dear Dr. Rocket, you know. And a lot of girls would write in and be, you know, tell their sexual problems and their boyfriend wasn't, you know, couldn't get a hard on or whatever, and then he'd write some really great response, or you know. And so we did the same thing with, you know, stupid columns that we had, mailbags, and people would ask questions and we'd reply with one of our fictional characters. And at some point girls just started writing all the time about meeting guys. And at some point we just started compiling it, and we're like, oh God, there's all these girls writing us about, you know, Jerry Dixon from Warrant's drunk and couldn't get a hard on. Like we got to do something with it, you know. So we just started compiling all the details, and then at some point we launched.
Did they get pissed? Did anyone get pissed at you or send a cease and desist or anything?
You know, some of the guys did. I mean, at some point, remember, a lot of this was anonymous,
right?
For the first 6 years.
6 years, yeah.
But at the same time, like what happened with Tuff and all the hair bands in 1991, yes, we saw grunge was coming and we realized it was affecting everybody. But I don't think nobody really knew to what extent it was really going to happen. The same thing with the internet. In 1998, there wasn't a lot of .coms. There wasn't a lot of emails. There wasn't a lot of internet. There was, think of this, there was no social media at that time.
Yeah, that's true.
Zero. Metal Sludge was the first social media for this kind of stuff, because we had the chat rooms. In the chat rooms, we had the message board. You could email, you could write, you could send in reviews. Like, it was kind of interactive. MySpace came along several years later, and you can Google all that. At some point, YouTube came along years later. Facebook even later than that, Twitter after that, Instagram after that. None of that stuff existed. So when we were doing all this, we didn't really think of what the consequences could be. You know, like somebody sent in nude photos of a few guys and like so-and-so backstage and he pulled his pants down. We're like, hey, check it out. You know,
and you put it on the site?
Somebody from Bullet Boys with their pants down. We're like, there it is, you know, whatever. Fucking hey, take a look. You know, like it was just, again, we didn't know what the consequences could or would be, and we just started printing stuff. And
did you ever feel guilty, or did you ever feel like you crossed the line with an article or anything? Or
I mean,
picture?
now, no, because it's a quarter of a century later. I mean, if you think about it, it's 23 years into this. So, I mean, it's not like we ever printed something and then somebody ended up dead because of it, you know. I mean, we've been blamed. I mean, Sebastian Bach has outright blamed me for his divorce, saying if it wasn't for Stevie Rachelle and Metal Sludge, I wouldn't be divorced, which I think that's nonsense because I didn't cause their divorce, you know?
Because what, you posted a picture of him with another girl or something?
No, well, we did interviews with some porn stars, and there was a couple of them who talked about meeting certain rock stars. And I believe Bach was mentioned in a couple that they said, yeah, I fucked him and he had a nice dick, but he was drunk and he wouldn't stop smoking pot. And, he smelled like fucking patchouli oil or whatever, like, so, and as much stuff as we did print over the years, a lot of times we would do interviews where other people would say something about somebody else.
Okay.
And it would be second and third hand information that would then be processed and put online. And then somebody's wife who's at home. And again, you have to think about where we were in the world 20 years ago. When all those bands went on tour every summer, let's say the band lives in LA.
Yeah.
And they're married and they have 2 kids that are 4 and 6 years old. And now it's June. Hey, honey, I'm going on the Rock Never Stops tour. I'll call you every day and check in. So now said guitarist, bass player, singer, drummer from one of those bands is now in a tour bus. He's going to Tucson and Phoenix and Vegas and Denver and Salt Lake. And what's happening? I don't know. She's back in an apartment or a house in Sherman Oaks and taking care of 4 and 5-year-old kids and wiping their ass and feeding them. At that point, there's no Facebook, there's no Twitter, there's no cell phones with like, hey, guess what I just took a picture of, and FaceTime. And it would be a phone call at 2 a.m. Oh, I'm really tired. The gig was long. God, so-and-so's her singer's a dick. I'm tired. Talk to you tomorrow. Click. And meanwhile, he's got some little bleach blonde whore in the bathroom. He's gonna fuck. So the women keeping track of their men, they couldn't do it that well in the 70s, 80s, or even 90s into the early 2000s. But in the last 10 or 15 years, now, if something happens at midnight and 10 people are filming it, anybody that's clicked on to Facebook Live, they know about it at 12:01 a.m.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely changed. It's
30 seconds ago. Like, right. There's the video. There's the guy. He fell off stage. He punched the guy. He's with that girl. He's walking in the hotel. He's at this restaurant. He's hugging her, whatever, I mean, and that's not just rock and roll. That's the whole world. Everything can be exposed really quickly.
No. And I mean, the thing with your site is like, I mean, yeah, it started out as a joke and, you had these like, different names that you would use and stuff, but it's really like come to be like, kind of like breaking news for a lot of stuff. Like recently Tony Katane died and you guys broke that story and people didn't want to believe it. And it was like, you were right. You were accurate. And you had the news before anyone else. And there's been a lot of stuff like that where you guys broke the story before anyone else.
Yeah. Well, trust me, I don't want to be the guy that breaks that story, but we were. And, I seen even on TMZ is essentially taking credit for it, saying they broke it. Their story didn't hit until 6:45 a.m. on Saturday the 8th. Our story was up at 7 p.m. on Friday the 7th. And some other industry personalities have also tried to take, credit for it. And it's not about taking credit for it, but give credit where credit is due.
Mm-hmm.
Metal Sludge also broke the story when Brian Howe of Bad Company died last spring. Metal Sludge broke the story when Rat had fired Warren DeMartini. Metal Sludge had broken the story to reveal who Rat's lineup was going to be when they played live for the first time, and who knows how long, with the new guitarist, the Ziff Kid and Sanders and Pete on drums, and a whole bunch of other stuff over the years. We broke the story when DJ Ashba was added to Guns N' Roses as the new guitar player, and everybody was convinced we were crazy because how would Guns N' Roses put a guy that was in Beautiful Creatures in their band? It's just Beautiful Creatures, with respect, is down here.
Mm-hmm.
Guns N' Roses is up here,
right?
And so it just didn't seem realistic. But we were the ones to break that. We were the ones to break a story when Steven Adler had to go into rehab and had to cancel all his shows. This was after multiple other rehabs and tours that were being aligned. And we broke some stories about Janie in and out of Warren a few times. a lot of big news in the world of rock and roll, especially the 80s era of rock and roll.
Because of your connections, or because people send you stuff, or both?
Well, it's a combination of all those things. I mean,
Okay.
Here's the thing. I didn't just start doing this a couple weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
You know, I've been in this business for over 35 years, and living here and being in this industry and being in the heart of it, per se, in Los Angeles, Southern California. And, you know, the longer you do something like this, the site's been online for 23 years. So when something crazy happens, at this point, just asking you, if something crazy, like if somebody just texted you right now and said, oh my God, this and this and this, and it was something to do with 80s bands, providing we're not on the call right now, where's one of the first 2 or 3 places you're going to look to probably try to confirm that?
Yeah, probably Metal Sludge or Blabbermouth or...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what happens is when something like this does happen, and trust me, there's a lot of times when people leak stuff, and it might be that they're leaking it to us on purpose. We, Metal Sludge, broke the story when Motley Crue was going to do their reunion. Do you remember the reunion tour commercial that hit VH1? And it was just all this noise and this loud crowd roaring and all the cameras. And then at the very end, the crowd came into focus, and it was the girl's top just about to be lifted up from the Home Sweet Home video.
Yeah.
Remember that clip that's in the Home Sweet Home video?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the whole commercial ran for 27 or 28 seconds. And in the last 2 seconds, you know, the commercial was like, you've waited long enough, you know, and all this. But there was no Motley Crue music. There was no logos, no words, no nothing. It was just all this motion and commotion and sound. And then the last 2 seconds, it was that little clip from Home Sweet Home where that girl's top goes like this. And they're like, you know, this summer. We got that commercial sent to us through an email, and we put it up, and we said Motley Crue is doing a reunion. They're going to go on tour, this, that, and the other. And of course, everyone said we were on high.
That's right. I remember that.
We were on crack. And that night at 10 or 11 o'clock, my phone rang, and it was a 310 number. And I answered the phone, and they said, is this Stevie Rachelle? And I said, yes, it is. Who is this? And she said, my name is Katie McNeil. I manage Motley Crue with 10th Street Management. And I said, okay. She goes, where did you get that video that's on your site? And I said, I have my sources. And she's like,
oh, shit.
Okay, I need you to take it down. I said, I'm not going to take it down. She goes, I'm asking you nicely. Can you please take the video down? And I said, no, I'm not going to take it down. I'm going to leave it. And I said, let me ask you this. Where did you get my number from? And she goes, I have my sources. And I said, okay.
What the fuck?
And she goes, Stevie, are we at a standstill here? I says, Katie, I'm not taking it down. I said, I'm either going to look stupid and I'm wrong, or I got a good teaser here and I'm ahead of the game. She goes,
nice.
Okay, then she goes, I'll reason with you. She goes, can I swap it out for a different one? And I said, and she goes, I want you to take that one down. I'll send you a different one to put up. I said, send me the other video and I'll swap it. And she goes, okay. So she sent me a different video, almost the same thing. It was edited just a little bit different, and I swapped it out.
Okay.
And then the next day she called me and giggled, and she said, if you ever want tickets to a Motley Crue show, call me and I'll hook you up. So that
awesome.
summer, I had like a half a dozen of my friends in like Indiana and Texas and Atlanta. And I called up Katie and I said, hey, I have a couple of friends that want to go to the show tonight in Chicago. And she goes, okay, no problem. She goes, give me the names. And my buddy calls me the next day. He goes, dude, I was like 6th row center. Like, wow. Literally like, 2 arm lengths from Nikki's bass the whole night. And I was like, okay, awesome. So, like that kind of stuff, that kind of stuff happened more than a few times. And at the same time, I've had people that have been really cool. Another incident I had with 10th Street Management. I get an email from 10th Street, which is Motley Crue's management. And they said, hey man, I need you to do me a favor. Can you please call me? My name is so-and-so. I work at 10th Street. I said, okay. So I called the guy up and I got on the phone and he goes, you guys did a story on Nikki and his new wife, Courtney, the new woman that he's married to, that he's had the baby with. This is about 3 or 4 years ago. He said, yeah, what's up? He goes, you used a picture of her where she's got a see-through top and you can kind of see her tits. And I go, okay. He goes, can you take that down? Put a different photo up. And he goes, just do me a solid here. Let's swap out the photo. He goes, if you ever need anything, let me know. I said, dude, done. I'll do it right now. He was so nice.
That's awesome.
He didn't say like, listen, you fucking punk, fucking take that shit down. We're going to sue the fuck out of you. He just said, hey man, can you do me a solid? Can you take Nikki's, new girlfriend off there with, her boobs are kind of showing through. I said, dude, done. And I swapped it out for a different photo of her, So a lot of times I've had people like this call me, be really polite, be really cool. You get more, you get more love with honey than salt, or
okay, so then tell me what happened then, real quick. I don't want to go into too much because you're probably sick of talking about it, but the whole Mitch Lafon thing, because I was hearing you talk about this in other interviews. I saw the original story, and then I saw you kind of had to change it, but I was laughing so hard. My girlfriend's like, "Are you crying?" I'm like, "No, I'm laughing. This is just so funny." Is it true he called the Better Business Bureau on you?
Absolutely. He absolutely did.
What? I didn't even know that was a thing that you could, like, what? Why? What did you do? What law did you break?
I didn't, I just hurt his feelings, but hey, it is what it is. That whole thing is a year old. Mitch and I have known each other a long time. I've never personally met him. He challenged me in a way that I thought was unfair many times. He said some things through the internet and online that weren't always putting Metal Sludge in good light, or me. And I always tried to make it like, I don't know, I guess I was second rate to him. And the straw that broke the camel's back was the Brian Howe thing, because we were the first ones to talk about that. And then at some point, I've seen other people say stuff like, even with the Tawny thing, well, there's no official statement from the family.
Right.
There's no official this, there's no official that. And my reply to that is this. If you wait for the family to say something and then they hand out the statement via email or something, you're reporting the news. We're going to report that so-and-so said this.
Mm-hmm.
Metal Sludge, in this case, we weren't reporting the news. We were breaking the news.
Right. That's very different.
The difference.
Yeah.
Breaking the story, breaking news. That's a term that's big in media. Like, we broke the story that Brian Howard passed away. We broke the story that Tawny Katane had passed away. We broke the story that Warren DeMartini was fired from Rat. We broke the story that this happened or that happened. We didn't just report the story, because if you're reporting it and everyone else is like people saying, well, it's not on Blabbermouth, so I don't know if I should believe it. And my reply to that is, Blabbermouth is a huge site. They're much bigger than Metal Sludge. They get a lot more action, a lot more hits. They cover a lot more territory. But why is it believable if it's on Blabbermouth, but it's not believable if it's on Metal Sludge? What is my track record that Metal Sludge has reported something that's not true?
Mm-hmm. That's the thing, is like, with the Tawny Katane, I could see people, they were all saying like, this is fake. Eddie Trunk removed his tweet or whatever. And I was like, I think it's going to end up being real. Cause so far, I've never seen you guys report something that wasn't true. So I think as long as you report it as truthful, that's okay, right? There's nothing against the law to report something if somebody doesn't want it out.
Well, and it's like the fact that Metal Sludge does do some Howard Stern-esque spoofy kind of stuff, or some Saturday Night Live kind of spoofy stuff. We make fun of stuff with some of my headlines are, at some point could be looked at as maybe slighting the artist or me being a little derogatory towards them. I remember when Jerry Dixon's ex-wife, Susan Blue Ashley, was selling her wedding dress that she had married Jerry Dixon in. And she was selling this on social media about a year ago. It was on Instagram, everything. Buy the wedding dress that I wore, blah, 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 blah. So I copied and pasted everything that she had wrote, but my headlines started out with "I don't" instead of "I do." She got so fucking mad at me, you know. But obviously, because her and Gerri had since divorced, and you know, people say "I do" when they're getting married, and obviously they got divorced, so I put "I don't," you know. But sometimes one or two words or three words or those little catchphrases, those little headlines, like Sebastian Bach was selling on eBay. He was selling some items from his house, like an armoire, like a cabinet, like a wooden cabinet with shelves and stuff. It was like from his kitchen or his living room, and he had it on eBay. And so like he was sharing it on his social media, on Instagram. He was trying to get people to buy it. And so I picked up the article, picked up the you know, his post and made an article of it. And then the headline said "firewood for sale," you know, and of course, Sebastian wasn't calling it firewood, but we called it firewood. And, you know, like one of the doors was broke, you know, it was just like, so, you know, we've made a lot of goofy posts over the years, a lot of fun, a lot of stories that have shtick. But at the same time, we've also reported stuff that's very serious. You know, we're not making fun of the fact that Tawny died.
Right.
Not even close.
Yeah.
We didn't make fun of the fact that Brian Howard died, and never made fun of the fact that Janie Lane has died, you know. But because Metal Sludge had done so many stories on Janie for years, where we goofed on him for having a mohawk or a wallet chain, or the fact that he had publicly said he didn't want to play the Cherry Pie song anymore, and we kind of roasted him a little bit about that. As did a lot of other places and people and sites and people online. But, you know, many, many years later, I mean, Tuff, Metal Sludge started in 98. Janie passed away at the end of 2011. Metal Sludge was around for almost 15 years before he passed away. And the stuff that we did a decade earlier, you know, then came full circle at some point once Janie died. I remember seeing stuff online where people said, Metal Sludge killed Janie Lane, or Stevie Rachelle is responsible for part of, you know, for Janie Lane dying because he was so depressed and his life was sad and he was drinking, and, you know, Metal Sludge in some of their articles beat him up over time. And
wow, I thought that never heard that.
Yeah, well, it's not like it's a blabbermouth story, but just, you know, comments from people online and, you know, social media comments, which those run the gamut. You know, people say all kinds of crazy stuff. But, you know, the fact that we made fun of Janie back 15 years earlier had nothing to do with the fact that he then, you know, sadly passed away the way he did. And we've always been respectful of him and anybody that's passed away or had a serious, you know, health issue or matter that way.
Yeah, no, I mean, but I enjoy it too. I mean, I think you got to be able to laugh at some of this stuff too, and have a sense of humor about it. And I always thought it was kind of tongue in cheek. And so I've always enjoyed it. And then, like you said, yeah, like when you break a serious story, like Tawny Katane, I mean, you didn't make fun of that, which, you know, you're respectful. So I thought that was fine. So it's weird that somebody would try to report you for bullying or call the Better Business Bureau, or, I mean, I don't know. It's just interesting. I don't know what the rules are with that stuff, but it seems like a little extreme.
Yeah. So, you know, going back to what I said about the magazines being competitive, having a rivalry, and the bands having a rivalry, it's the same thing with websites. I mean, I know a lot of these guys. I've communicated with the guy from Blabbermouth. I communicate with Oliver from Sleaze Rocks. I know a couple of the guys at KNAC. I know guys at a bunch of the sites, and they know me. And a lot of us share information. A lot of us share stories, and hey, if you cover my story, I'll cover yours, or can you help me push this and I'll push yours. And we've done that for years. And there's always, you know, not everybody has the same agenda, and sometimes there's a little bit of not really cool, you know. But I think the thing with Mitch is that he felt, I think he kind of at some points maybe felt left out. And I say that because he doesn't have a site. so-and-so's running Blabbermouth, I'm running Sludge, Oliver at Sleaze Rocks, Tim at Brave Words, Rob and the guys at KNAC, and a lot of us that communicate amongst each other are all the guys that own the sites or control it or run it.
Mm-hmm.
Mitch was just a contributor here and there.
Mm-hmm.
He's a local guy in Montreal that interviews guys when they come to town, and he's tried to do his own podcasts or video channels, and he's done well with it. I mean, he's obviously got a name for himself. He reaches a lot of people. He knows a lot of people, especially in the KISS camp. But he was disingenuous to me on multiple occasions, as he was a lot of other people. And at some point, I had to pull his card, and I exposed him for all truths. And anybody listening, if you ever question anything that I put up that's no longer there, I have it all. I screen captured and saved it all.
Yeah, that was crazy. I just remember
everything that I reported, Mitch said.
It was crazy. I read that and I was like, my jaw dropped. I was like, oh God, like you really just like annihilated him. And then, cause like one of his things said something about like, let's go after Blabbermouth and take him down or something. So you show him that like
that multiple times.
They're never gonna, they'll never run his stories again though, right?
A few times to try to get me to kind of create some kind of like, hey, let's do this. I've never said that. I've never tried to like, hey, let me take somebody else's site and ruin it or ruin their reputation. I've never thought that.
Yeah.
My site is my thing. My reputation is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I've already created enough controversy. I don't need anyone else to try to ruin it for me. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm doing that on my own. So, but I'm responsible for myself. If I say something, I own it.
Fair enough.
If I do something, I own it. If I say I'm going to say something or do something or commit to something, I'm there.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love Metal Sludge. So yeah, the new Tuff record is going to be out. And then are you doing a new Tales from the Porn and a new Shameless album as well?
The Shameless record is mostly recorded. Alex is beating me up right now because I still got to sing a couple more songs. It's technically the 8th studio record. And I think overall it'll be, the 11th release.
Dang.
For Shameless. And the first one we recorded in either 98 or 99. So there's going to be a new Shameless record, which will come out probably at the very end of this year or early next year. And then I would look to and hope that we're going to tour throughout Europe a couple of times, maybe in the spring and the fall. This was going to come out earlier, but because of everything that happened in 2020 with the pandemic, and then it kind of extended into this year, there was no sense in trying to rush it because everything is still really up in the air. Same applies with Tales from the Porn. I spoke with Andy and, a couple of the guys in Brazil. I'd love to make another record with them. Our first record was a project that kind of came out of nowhere, and we kind of did it, and it got a great reaction. People really liked it.
Yeah, I like that one.
And now, the Tuff deal I signed with Rhino Warner is officially giving me the go-ahead to license and reissue the record. And it's already been remastered. The graphics have been put together. Basically, this, it's in a manufacturing phase right now.
Okay.
So,
and then will you do some live shows, either as Tuff or a solo, or how?
No, we will definitely do more shows as Tuff. It would be me and Todd.
Okay.
Todd Chase. Billy Morris is our guitar player, and Todd T. Burr would be our drummer.
Okay.
For the most part, if we play the West Coast. If we go further east, I'd probably use Jimmy Lord. Jimmy played with us during the Fist First and Religious Fix years. And I've kind of used both of those guys because T lives in Arizona. He's more West Coast. Jimmy lives kind of Kentucky. He's more East Coast. Billy Morris, who plays guitar with us, and he has done so for the better part of 15 years. As many people know, he played in Warrant for years.
Yeah.
And he was brought in by Janie because they're both Ohio boys, and they had a little bit of a friendship there. And even when Janie had left Warrant, Billy played with Janie solo. But Billy's great. Him and Todd Chase live in Ohio, in Cleveland. They have a food truck business that they've been doing for several years that's become pretty successful. So doing Tuff is still kind of a part full-time job for me. I do all Tuff things related, but as far as playing, there's just not a big enough demand for us to play a ton.
Mm.
But when we do get offered some of these cool events, whether it's Monsters of Rock or one of these big festivals, we try to put some dates around it.
Cool.
Whether it's, Cat House Live, Hair Nation Live, M3, these kind of rock festivals that always
awesome
draw a lot of people.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
worth it for us to be on.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I've never seen you guys live. Obviously, I missed that, era, but it would be fun to, if you did one of these one-offs, like a fest. I've always wanted to do the Monsters of Rock cruise. I've never done that, or one of those kinds of festival. There's so many new ones popping up. There's one in Minnesota, I think, that's got like Warrant and Skid Row and a bunch of cool bands.
We played at that one before. It's
okay.
It's at a casino north
yep.
of Minneapolis, and I'm drawing a blank. It's called.
Yeah, I forget, but I know I want to go this summer. Yeah, it'd be cool if you did something like that. But yeah, if you're in Phoenix, that's where I live. So that'd be cool to see a show there. Awesome. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I do like to end each episode with a charity or a nonprofit, one that you support or that you want to give a shout out to. Is there anything that you've worked with in the past?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there's an autism charity that my friend Chris Wilson has put together in Florida. And if you go to Metal Sludge, there's some banner advertisements in the right column of all articles that you can scan up and down. There's a bunch of banners for different stuff, including there's two. One is there's a top of the page, there's a cookbook.
Okay,
it's
yeah.
Rockstar recipes. If you go look at that right now, that's an autism charity.
Yeah, I had him on. Kenny?
Yeah, exactly.
Kenny Wilkerson? Yeah.
Yeah. His autism charity is on Metal Sludge. We support that with banners. And for people that want to support it and buy one of the cookbooks have got recipes from different rock stars.
Yeah, it's fun. I like it.
Enough, and how he does his, grilled cheese and soup.
Right, yeah.
Todd Chase from such and such, so-and-so from Faster Pussycat, Ted Poley of Danger. It's basically a rock star recipe book, and it's got all kinds of cool recipes from guys in the bands, and then, with some of that money, it'll help support autism awareness, as along with Chris's as well. Both are found on Metal Sludge if you scan the banners.
I'll put it in the show notes too. So awesome. Thanks so much, Stevie. Anything else you want to promote?
That's it. I just, if anybody wants to find out about me, they can Google Tuff, Google Stevie Rachelle. I'm on all social media platforms. TuffCDs.com is the official band site, or you can go to metalsludge.com or metalsludge.tv, and there's a ton of related links there. And for those who haven't read it or know about it, read the Tuff Diaries.
Yeah, I'm about halfway through that. It's fascinating. Good stuff.
The Tuff Diaries is a 25-part series that I started, and it's all about me making my way from Wisconsin on a one-way plane ticket to LA to try to meet and audition for Tuff, which was in the spring of 1987. And then it takes you through the years, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91. It takes you through all of it. There's tons of stuff on, if you've read part of it, there's rock stars, porn stars, movie stars, drug dealers.
It's uncensored. It's very graphic, and it's good stuff.
But it's my point of view about how things went down, and I never thought that it would get the reaction it did, but the reaction has been great. A lot of people have said, "Dude, you're a good writer," which I don't usually. I don't remember hearing that too many times in my life, but I've had compliments on songs or lyrics, but as far as writing, people really like what they've read in the Tuff Diary.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. Cool stuff. Yeah, very cool. All right, thanks, man. I'll be in touch.
Thank you, Chuck Shoot.
All right, take it easy.
I'm a fan of yours as well. I've watched many of your episodes, and at some point I wanted to be honored. Here I am to promote the Tuff What Comes Around Goes Around remastered reissue on RLS Records, courtesy of Rhino Entertainment Company and Warner Music Group by association with the original company, Atlantic Records.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Sounds amazing, and it's going to look even better. And for everybody, go to toughcds.com, order your vinyl, your CD. There's T-shirts. There's other related anniversary merchandise. 91 to 2020, when the 30th anniversary of What Comes Around Goes Around, and I can't wait for people to have it in their hands.
Awesome. Very cool. I love it. All right. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Talk to you later.
See you guys later.
Okay. Bye-bye. Stevie Rachelle, singer of Tuff, debut album is being re-released. Definitely check all that out. Make sure to follow Stevie on all social media. Definitely follow Metal Sludge to keep up to date with rock music news. They break a lot of the big stories as we've just discussed. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to check out some of my other interviews. A lot of the music we discussed has been covered. I've interviewed a lot of members of the bands of that genre, including Warrant, LA Guns, Trickster Firehouse, etc. So if you want to support the show, you can share, like, and comment on social media and YouTube. That helps me out. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great day. And remember to shoot for the moon.